believes it to be, it was not meant to be so. So let us seize the moment today on this live edition of Africa Online Media Corporation's broadcast to raise awareness around gathering and disseminating news on the pandemic COVID-19. It is nobody's friend and nobody stands to gain anything for that matter, dressing it, that is COVID-19, in any colorful robes. It is, in fact, a naked pandemic. So at this point, I see Professor Bonga is anxiously waiting to say something. Prof, news coverage of the pandemic, is it going the way news traditionally goes? From you, we'll go to Professor D'Amato. So you take the ball first, then we'll go to Professor D'Amato.
Good afternoon, everybody, and it's a pleasure, as always, to be on Africa Online and for us to be talking about one of the most topical issues of our times, COVID-19, and especially the coverage of the pandemic as it's gripped the entire world. Let me begin by saying that when I talk about the way I look at the coverage, I talk about the coverage of the politics of COVID-19. What do I mean by that? Like all major global events, they tend to be political. They tend to be political in the sense that we, whether in the United States or in other parts of the world, do not see the facts of an issue, even when we can know them the same way. Let's begin with the United States and talk about the politics of covering the pandemic. If you look at this morning's New York Times, you would see a huge a list of some of the deceased that is a major section of the newspaper. It's a very brutal story from my perspective, in the sense that you look at almost 100,000 names of people who have died, who've passed away. That has the power to shock. It shocks in several ways. It shocks at the same time when others are looking at COVID-19 as nothing really to worry about as much. That's the politics of it. And if you, again, look at the United States, you look at how the different ideologies, the major ideological strands in the United States look at an issue like COVID-19. You have liberals, most of them tend to be Democrats, who look at it as an issue that we should all pay close attention to, adhere to all the restrictions, stay home as much as possible, and make sure we only come out when there is a vaccine and when there are ways to solve it. On the other side, you have conservatives who look at it from a very business perspective. In other words, the whole country is on lockdown, the economy is going down the tubes, and you cannot afford, even if people are going to die, to lock up all the sources of the engine that drives the economy. So you look at these two perspectives, and the coverage therefore reflects these two tendencies. You have right-wing media that tends to be dominated by conservative ideologies pushing an agenda that tends therefore to comfort or to support that ideology. And on the other hand, you have left-wing media also who tend to look at it this way. So what does it mean? What is the truth about COVID-19, and then what is the coverage of it? So like everything else, the coverage is always going to be very ideological and very slanted. Now, globally, what is it like? What is the coverage of it around the world? If you look at newspapers around the world, as I often do for my pastime, you would see that it replicates to an extent what I've been talking about that is happening in the United States. You go to countries that are repressive, meaning countries that tend to muscle the press. There are uncomfortable facts, such as the numbers of the dead in those countries, when and if they can be counted, that are suppressed by governments. And governments therefore tend to hit on the head of those journalists who's dare to give numbers that would show the country in a bad light. So on the one hand, therefore, just to stop there and give a chance to my dear friend Jerry, I see there, therefore you see that the coverage of an issue as global and as dreadful as the pandemic takes on ideological slants. And this is not unique to this time. If you go to 1918, 1919 and read the newspapers of the period, you would think you are reading newspapers of today. The coverage was similar. The politicians used it for their own purposes, and journalists from various ideological bents also took it to champion their causes. I will come back to underscore some of those points when we hear from Jerry and the rest.
We seize the opportunity, thank you, Professor Ben Bongang, to welcome Professor Jerry Damatap to this show. You're welcome, brother, and please take the cue from here. How has news coverage been different in those days than these days? Is the COVID-19 coverage any different than any normal news coverage?
I think he's muted. Dr. Jerry? Hello? Dr. Damata, we can't hear you.
Maybe his microphone is off.
He's speaking, but I don't even see his microphone as being off.
And it's only you that
you
can.
guys go ahead. Let me call him. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, while we do that, we can go ahead discussing, hoping that he'll get back to us.
He's speaking, but
we can't hear him.
Yeah.
Let me pick up a little bit from here while we're still trying to get our other guest on online. With regards to the current reporting, I was just reading an article. I don't even remember where I read it at, but we're talking about sometimes we underreport stuff, especially when it's good things that are coming out of Africa. Now, anytime that the Western world wants to report on things,
is your audio on?
Things going on.
We see you.
Reverend Pam, can you mute yourself? Can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Yeah, so I'm sorry about that. We're trying to get our other guests on, so we had to mute Reverend Pam so that the rest of us can continue with the show. So what I was saying is, it has been purported that Africa has done a fantastic job trying to control the COVID pandemic. Now, I'm not sure whether it's because the numbers are underreported, or whether it's because people are not being tested, or whether it's because people are just not coming forth, period. But from the powers that might be that are reporting the numbers, most countries are not doing as bad as the rest of the world, or even Melinda Gates predicted and said that Africans will be dropping, quote unquote, like flies. So when it's something negative, Africa is always number one to be portrayed in that way. But when there's something positive coming out of Africa, guess what? The Western world is very shy about it. They're very quiet about it, and they're not going to say anything about it. So why is it that us as African reporters, or children of the continent and sons and daughters of the continent, why can't we pick that up also so that we start putting that positive image on our continent, and also start talking about things that are good? Why should only the bad stuff be the things that are shared on media?
Yeah, if I may chime in there, it is one of the most important things about African affairs and about reporting about Africa. Who writes the African stories? And I think that's where Africa Online comes in. We are the seed of what hopefully will be a different way of writing and talking about Africa. But here's the problem. The problem reporting about Africa is a problem that Asong, Jerry, and myself, we experience. How do you access information from the powers that have that information? It is not easy to have that. A reporter could fly into Yaoundé to Kinshasa today from the US or from Paris and have access to the presidency of any of those countries than I would do. So what happens, therefore, is an attempt by even zealous and very committed journalists, like we used to be, who are eager to report the facts, but we don't have access to the facts. So what happens? What happens is that we begin to speculate. A danger in journalism. You do not speculate. You write, you report the facts, you talk to those authorities who will give you the unvarnished facts, or even if they give their version, you check on the other side and you get a balanced story. So that is the first problem. The media houses on the continent are constantly threatened by authorities. If you may have heard the last couple of months, Equinox TV in Cameroon came under fire because apparently it was thought to be favoring the opposition leader, Maurice Kamto, in its reporting, or reporting about atrocities, giving the impression that it was government that was responsible for killings in Garbo in the Northwest Province. So even though you have now, and I'll give the example of Cameroon, and as I'm very interested in the development of the media there, you go to Cameroon today, you have so many television stations, so many radio stations, but the problems are no different than the problems we experience, in the sense that people are, our colleagues, especially our young colleagues who are very eager to do the job that we left, do not have access to information. And that is where rumors come in. That is where you have somebody from their bedroom who picked up a viral video, sending it, and it becomes a global story. And we take it for the fact, depending on, remember I talked ideology at the beginning? Depending on our own ideological leanings, we are going to be pushing that video because it is comforting to our perspective on the issue.
It may be comforting, but the dangers are there all the same. I know Dr. Jared Damatap, is he able to talk to us now? Dr. Damatap?
I asked him to dial in.
Oh, okay. And okay,
sure
Dr. Stella is also on standby. Dr. Stella, welcome to the show this Sunday, 24th.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes.
I can hear
you, but we can't see you.
Oh. Okay, I thought I was.
Maybe maybe.
Okay, good.
Off.
All right, there you go.
We see you.
Oh, good.
Now we see you.
I was wondering.
Now I can see you.
Okay, awesome.
Hey, Dr. Stella.
Hey.
Yeah, Stella, how are you?
Where do we go?
I'm doing excellent.
Coverage about Africa and about COVID-19.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now, is actually being able to decipher the news to see what is true, what is right, you know. And you said something that was very poignant, that everybody reports the news based on their personal ideologies. You know, we've really had and the news coming out of most of us and most countries in Africa tend to want to take cues from what is happening in other places and what is happening everywhere else. And the news that is coming in different places, they're all skewed and all twisted. So at the end of the day, it's kind of hard to get the true picture of what's going on in different areas. And one of the things that I find very disturbing as a physician is the fact that there's a lot of censorship going on right now. There's a lot of censorship going on right now on news that does not fit particular narratives, and it's distressing that we can have maybe a study come out of India and or a study come out of Senegal, which tends to be favorable to what is going on, and it's buried so deep that you have to dig deep to find it, you know. So a lot of the news that is coming on right now on television, well, but the news that we could, most of us seek news online, be it Facebook, social media, and everything. We seek news on all these various platforms. And a lot of these stories are being buried, and a lot of stories there's a lot of censorship going on, which is what I'm finding distressing. So a lot of things that we're reporting on the COVID, especially in the medical field, you know, it's become very, very distressing, because things that are reported that can be used and favor the treatment of this disease is being censored out. And most of the stuff that is being reported is just stuff to make people very terrified and scared. That's where I've been very distressed about it. And sometimes it's just hard to be able to get information across or out to people that this is the way, this is actually the truth. And, you know, these other things are lies, or, you know, this is what we're seeing, or at least give all the sides of the news. You know what I'm saying? Give this disease is new. Like I tell other physicians, I said, this is a novel disease. So a lot of people have their trial and errors being done everywhere. There are people that are using different things that are working for the disease, different procedures. But at the end of the day, they are trying to filter all that and only bring out what comes from maybe the CDC or WHO and everything. And I will tell you straight up, those organizations cannot really be trusted, because they are influenced by pharma and influenced by a lot of other things. So those organizations cannot be trusted. So that is what we're finding right now, very, very distressing, is the fact that the truth is being buried, and lies are being, and a narrative is being purported to make sure that, number one, it terrifies people enough. Number two, it pushing the narrative of, you know, expensive big pharma medications. And number three, is pushing the narrative of vaccines, which I don't even know whether they can actually get a vaccine for coronavirus, because we've not been able to have a vaccine for the common cold. The common cold is a coronavirus.
May I just add to what Dr. Stella is saying? I think one of the things that you've just emphasized there is the big interest of the big corporations, the big pharma and others who are, of course, interested in this problem. But if we could go back to the basics of the profession, when you look at a pandemic like COVID-19, the question should be, what kinds of stories should be coming out in the media that would be of interest to the general public?
Of help.
The first, of course, is, what is this about? So how serious is it? How do we get exposed to it? How do we avoid it, if at all we can? Then the next one is, will there be a vaccine? What is coming out from the pipelines in the laboratories? What are they saying? What are those who are studying it say? So on the one hand, we want the facts, the unvarnished facts, what is coming out and how people should be ready to deal with it. Then the politics of it, of course, will come depending on the interest. So it looks like Jerry is there, so maybe I let him talk.
No, his audio is not on.
Okay.
I'll let you guys know when he's on.
That was Sylvia, I think.
No, Dr. Domatow's audio is not on.
Oh, okay. All right. I think I saw Stella. Was that Stella?
Yeah,
Reverend
Solange. That was Solange.
Oh, Reverend Solange. Okay.
Hi, hi everybody.
Good
Hey.
afternoon.
I'm just here to listen and learn whatever the media is saying. I always tell, you know, everyone I come across, like, you know what, I'm going to use my common sense, not too much of the media as far as coronavirus goes. The reason being because, like, recently our president says churches can open. It's a wonderful thing. I miss going to church. I miss sitting, you know, among the brethren and worshiping. But at the same time, I'm proceeding with caution. Because, as I said, to each its own, I'm not just going to delve in. Like one of my American friends said, she said, Solange, you know what? She's actually a deacon in their church, said, the media is so mixed up that even the most intelligent person can get really confused. Because we want to trust the media as being the source, the channel through which we can get information and learn and know as a guide. But there's so much mixed up in the media because of either political reasons, self-interest, or whatever. And she gave this analogy. She said, when God flooded the earth with water, he asked Noah to build an ark. Noah was able to save his family and all the animals 2 by 2. And when the flood ceased, when they said the flood was ceased, Noah did not just rush out. The dove had to go 3 times. When he came the third time with the olive branch, that's when they knew the coast was clear. So she is going to wait. So when we listen to the media and all that, we have to use our common sense, listen to your body. If you wake up in the morning, maybe you're having some kind of fever or whatever, they say the symptoms are, or if there's no symptom at all, just listen to your body. And I don't want to say the media cannot be, no, the media cannot be fully trusted. I'm sorry, but that's my take, okay? All right, Dr. Asang, over to you.
Okay, Sylvia, I thought you had a question.
No, it wasn't a question. I was actually trying to call the Reverend Stella to come on at the time, because I noticed that the other guest hasn't come on yet. But all the same, like the 2 esteemed doctors have said earlier on, this media reporting is becoming quite chaotic. Yep. And at the moment, I guess we get what we get, because there's truly no, how can I say, written law right now that people will follow, because media has changed as we know it. As when we were journalists, when we were younger, where there were ways that, we had to report, and like the doctor said, how we had to make a verification and make sure that the information that we're sending is authentic. Right now, like I said, everybody's a reporter. Just report what you think is right, and everybody follows you.
And the challenge for us who have to teach these young journalists in school is to kill that urge in them, which is a task that is very difficult. Because, for instance, when we assign journalism students to cover stories, their reaction immediately is the reaction we are seeing. They want to get it first. They want to be the first person to put the story out. Where I sometimes ask them, you got your video, you got your phone. It's a powerful tool.
Okay, but I just
I want
connected,
you
but the problem is that
to be able to talk to the people you want to talk to, edit the story, and have it ready. But the next thing is they want to get the story to you within the next 5 minutes. But I said, but have you verified it? Have you been able to cross-check to make sure it is reliable? So they are reacting exactly like those who are out there today peddling these stories. And that makes it our job as teachers of future journalists even more difficult and more challenging, because you have to curb that urge in them to be the first. You want them to have the most accurate story, but not the fastest story to reach out there. But guess what?
Dr. Jerry is on.
The big story that is out there is the one that becomes they will be quoted by everyone else.
Okay,
so
Professor Bongan, hold that thought for now. Hold that thought for now. I think Dr. Jerry Domatov is now on the line. Dr. Jerry, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Let me thank Pastor Pam, Brother Asonglefac. It's so delightful to be in touch with the family, and of course, our great friend, Professor Ben Bongan. Greeting, guys.
Thank you.
We apologize. Great to meet you finally here.
I didn't get my greeting. How come out of the greeting?
Oh my God! Let me give it. Double greeting.
Reverend Pam, I'm about to drop off the program. I wasn't greeted today.
You are the co-anchor. I'm dealing with technical issues.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to
the show. Professor Domatov, we're talking coverage of COVID-19. As a professor of journalism and as a former practitioner yourself, how different is news coverage today of COVID-19 than it was in those days when we used to have that Nagra on our shoulders and run out there hunting for facts?
You'd be surprised, as the French say, plus ça change, plus ça reste le même. So you can see that the world has changed, but it has not. in other words, the cornerstones remain what they were. The media is the media. It addresses the 5 questions of Professor Laswell. Who says what, to whom, where, in which channel, and with what effects. So the role of the media may have changed, but it has not changed. So in a situation like this, which is very complicated, which is political, economic, social, cultural, and totally, in some ways, confusing, if we would accept that, it becomes very difficult. And then the question becomes, what's the media's role? Okay, the media's role is traditionally what it has been. It attempts to inform, it attempts to interpret, it attempts to investigate, it attempts to, and I'm using the word attempt deliberately, because sometimes we think that we've attained that status or that objective when in reality we have not. So it's always, as you pointed out a few minutes ago, an endeavor which demands verification. But if just for the fun of it, we wanted to do the ABCs of communication today, what would we say from A to B or to C is the role of communication? A, and if you disagree, please just let us know. A for me would be what? It advertises. It continues to do that. It did that before. It admonishes. It advertises. Under B, communication what? Fosters the business dimension of it. It's coronavirus. But you'd be amazed the business dimension of this. And then C would be communication. The media connects. The media contributes. The media commercializes. D, what is the media doing? The media, again, directs. And then if you look at the other side of it, the media demeans. The media defeats. That takes us to D. The media debates. And it does all of that in varying degrees, depending on what media we're talking about, because we're talking about an elephant here. The media what? Radio, television, newspapers, and then what? 180-something countries in the world. And so the question becomes, specifically, who is your target audience? Again, the Laswellian story. So B, C, D, E, we talk about the media becoming elevating. The media elevates. The media entertains, again, the traditional function, and the other things it does. Then if we go to F, what? The media fashions out the strategies, it fashions out the shape, the form, the design. It does all of that, and sometimes very negatively. E, where we are talking about E, then F, then G. What does the media do? It guides. We never want to buy that, but it guides. And then that takes us to the agenda function of the media. The media sets the agenda, and that's part of the guiding role. Then, of course, under H, the media highlights. And if you take taking again, depending on what we mean by media, we talk about radio, television, newspapers, magazine, Radio Nigeria, Radio Ghana, Radio, the BBC. Which are we talking about? And then I, the media informs, the media inspires, the media identifies, the media illustrates. Or then we go to J. What does the media do? It justifies. It's quite intriguing that for the first time I've been reading excerpts from coming out of Cameroon. I've not read that for a while. I got curious with the Bishop Samuel Kleda. They said he had found some kind of remedy for this. But that was intriguing because that takes us to point number what communication justifies decisions, knowledge. Whatever we know about this virus is partly thanks to the media. What the media tells us becomes very crucial. So if they're telling us lies, that's also very, very catastrophic because the Italians, for instance, are disturbed by the kind of results they found out that this, in essence, the way the whole thing was reported, it was not a virus, rather it is, as they claim, a bacteria. And they have been sending people home, which is quite intriguing. That's in Italy, quite a number of people. And of course, one good thing they did is what Bishop Kleda might be doing in Douala has attained some measure of, has attained and received some publicity, which is crucial. So K knowledge knowledge dissemination. Then under L, the media leads. Again, this is taking us to the agenda function of the media. The media tells or sets the agenda for us. And it's doing that, sometimes very negatively, because in some instances they place emphasis on the wrong things. But with the coronavirus affair, I must say that they have done a marvelous job. I mean, I've been watching them almost daily. They've done a tremendous job in reporting within regions of the United States, globally. It's been, in my opinion, one of the success stories. Of course, there are so many dimensions which are still untouched, but they're crucial. Then, if we go JKL, the communication leadership, the media is a leader. Whether we want it or not, they lead thoughts. They're leaders of thought. They're leaders of ideas. They're leaders of issues. And they perform that function sometimes with accuracy, sometimes with phenomenal failures. Then LM, money. People sometimes talk about the philanthropic and altruistic role of the media. And let's make no mistakes. It's a big business venture. Big business, multi-million-dollar venture. It was then, it's still the same thing, and that's part of it now. Then if we go to P, the media proves, the media propels, the media projects, the media publicizes. Public relations, publicity is a major function of the media. And again, in this instance, the media is performing that role. Then if we go to PQ, communication qualifies and communication quantifies. Those of you, Brother Song and Brother Ben, you are veteran teachers and scholars, the quantity and the qualitative dimensions of information become very, very central in matters of this nature. Then R, the media does research. I mean, even the little talking we're doing here today, I had to go back to some of the books, look at the newspapers and magazines, very crucial. PQRS, spotlight. That's one of the best things the media is doing. I mean, they spotlight some of these statistics, they spotlight some of the researchers doing whatever research they're doing in what part of the world, and that becomes really very critical, the spotlighting function of the media. And then the media trains. The media has been a training ground in the educational function of the media. Once again, not perfect, not as we want it to be, but they emerge and do whatever little they can, sometimes well, sometimes minimally, but they are really very major institutions which we must pay attention to. And then, of course, we can talk about Unify for you, V, the media verifies. Then the idea that the media is an instrument of war. Some people envisage this whole crisis from a perspective of warfare, and there might be some relevance to that. So then we have W, warmongering, Xeroxing. But if we take again one of those distinguished professors, and I remember my days as a student, one of the lines I never forgot was, the function of the media in every society is the correlation of its parts and the transmission of social heritage. So if you look at the role the media is playing, then it was an instrument answering the 5 whys and this. Today, the same questions arise. Yes, we have all kinds of gadgets which are in the market. Sometimes they enhance the process, and sometimes they are a major liability because we don't even understand what they're talking about. But I want to take this opportunity to extend my profuse appreciation to Pastor Pam. She's a phenomenal lady. I don't know how she does what she does, but I want to thank her. I want to thank Brother Asong. You guys are doing something marvelous. This is a new era. This is a new time, and this is a new day. I want to thank Brother Ben. And if we do not join or jump into this new manner of communication, we will again be left behind. So we thank I personally, as a trainer of communicators, I want to thank you guys for the initiative you've taken, for the place you're attempting to give Africa, for your interest, for your sacrifice. I realize that, this is a lot of time you're putting into this. We have to look for some kind of funding. Reverend Pam, you seem to be the guru when it comes to fundraising. I'm just throwing this out there that even we, the journalists, sometimes want to taste some wine, not too expensive wine, but sometimes we like to taste it with gizzard. Well, if it's at home, we'll take gizzard. But we have other things here: the chicken, of course, the turkey. We really appreciate you looking for ways of enhancing this program, and I thank you. I congratulate you. We are grateful that you involved some of us, and please do not rule us out that we didn't do a good job today. We will prepare, and we are ready to work with you. This is a fantastic scheme, and please accept my best wishes and cheers in all the endeavors you are involved in. So I thank you, and I thank you, and I'll hand over the microphone to our leaders.
Thank you, Dr. Jerry Damatop, for your contribution.
Yes,
I hope that you're not dropping the microphone or not dropping the
Not yet, sir.
we have more questions to follow. One of the things that I wanted to ask everybody is the media's urge today to rush to report the news overshadowing that caution that we used to take to be able to verify and re-verify and then cross-verify before we broadcast the news?
Yeah, let me try that. But before I go there, I just want to underscore what Dr. Damatop has been saying. And Jerry, thanks so much for giving our listeners, I think, a lesson in the fundamentals of our profession. And it is very important that people should know how serious this business of reporting stories is and what it takes to be able to do it. I think one of the things you raised, which is, I think, worthy of our discussion, is the story out of Douala from Bishop Cleda, who claims to have concocted some of the plants of his garden that are curing COVID-19. Of course, the story was on social media. Then I saw it on Jeune Afrique. So I said, well, maybe this sounds like a serious story. And that is an example of a very important story that needs to be reported. What is the truth to this? And for a story that claims to solve a problem like this pandemic, it requires that we pay attention to, So imagine if we could turn around, and I bring the politics back to it, in this case, international political dimensions of it. If, for instance, the story had been that somewhere in Kansas, somebody had come up from their garden with a concoction that was curing COVID-19, I can guarantee you that the media of the world would have been in Kansas, camping out there now, trying to find out the truth about it and having researchers test and retest it. But besides African media, I have not heard Western or other media jumping on to say, what is it that Bishop Cleda is claiming? Because that's what we do as journalists. We hear a story, if it is intriguing enough, we want to find out. We want to find out more. So if you could clarify the part of the question that I got carried away and didn't address, the part of the question.
Yeah, the question was, is the media today rushing to report rather than taking the caution to verify and before releasing the news?
In fact, the story, the anecdote from Douala and Dr. Reverend Cleda's claims is one of such. When people are reporting the story of the bishop who claims, are they reporting with the skepticism that is expected of any report that is not conclusive, or are they claiming that there is a cure? I think that's an example. And then when we look at it from this perspective, from what happened in Italy, in Great Britain, the thousands who died, that became the biggest story for obvious reasons. When people die, it's a big story. It's like the war. People are dying. We report on the casualties. But what was missing, in my opinion, was what were the facilities like? Was there anything wrong with the facilities that would make it impossible to limit the number of deaths? That part of the story, I'm sure there will be investigations in different countries to see what worked or didn't work. It was overwhelming. It took the world unawares because most of the places where the most people died were where we carried patients from developing countries to these destinations because we know they have the best facilities. But that is where the majority of people died. So I would answer the question again by saying, I think this is one of the stories that overwhelmed everyone else. Because as you would know, as an editor, you would think twice before sending any reporters at the time to Milan a month or two ago when people were dying in thousands. So how do we get to the truth in wartime, in the middle of a war, in the middle of a pandemic? So I think most of what has been happening in terms of reporting has been other media picking up from where those who can afford to report have been reporting. So you have stories that are being shared. But another dimension to reporting is what is the local dimension of any story? So you've seen also that when you look at the national newspapers, you will have national and global perspectives. But when you go to the local papers, they are the local dimensions of the stories. And I think that is, their journalists are doing the work they should do. A person in my neighborhood here in Georgetown, Savannah, would want to know what is the impact of this in Georgetown? How our schools going to do in come August? Or what are the summer camps going to be like? And it is those dimensions that I think become the story that people want to hear about because it concerns them directly.
Thank you very much. Any other takers, please? Reverend Pam, you've been juggling with all the technical aspects and you've had this set, I think, today.
For real.
Certainly you have some ideas to share.
Okay, we have 4 minutes, so I'll probably just go. If somebody wants to weigh in real quick, or let me just go. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Jerry Domatov. Obviously, the technical issues we're having, you know, some demon did not want us to get the ABCs of journalism. That's a new one to me, and I'm definitely going to watch this show and take some notes. I'm hoping that our listeners, we have at least 3,200 people following this on Facebook, and we're going to make sure it goes out. I have a couple of questions specifically for our journalism professors. Actually, there are 3 of them. Aren't we blessed? Dr. Jerry Domatov is a professor of journalism. Dr. Benboga is a professor of journalism. And me, Asong, used to be a professor of journalism in Cameroon. But we have 2 professors of journalism currently in the US on this show. So this show is loaded with Africa's brains, you know. But I want you guys to listen to this question and answer it after the top of the hour. There are a couple of things. I know you guys address the mainstream media, but my question has to do with social media and all these reporters that are not journalists, that don't know the ABCs of journalism, like we just learned from Dr. Domatov today. So anybody can put out anything. They just need to have a phone, and most people have a phone. And this is very concerning to me because bad news or bad information is worse than no information, as far as I'm concerned. There are people putting out, even the bishop that was mentioned. I saw that thing on WhatsApp, but then again, I saw another one from him claiming that the information that they put out about his product is incorrect, that he doesn't claim to cure anything. And this is a problem. Who is vetting this information? Who is vetting it? How many people have died from taking the wrong things? Same thing with the hydroxychloroquine, and chloroquine. Who is putting that information? The journalists, I know the mainstream media, they have their own challenges. I saw something recently that, well, I don't want to call any media's name. Somebody from the mainstream media said churches are a breeding ground for spreading coronavirus. So my thing is, some people get it, just like somebody was sending something with a building, of a Microsoft founder and saying that the building, you see it there was Photoshop, that you will not know. It said it was a center claiming this, supporting this conspiracy theory that this person is out to kill Africans. But it looks so authentic, but it was false. It was doctored. That picture was, that image was Photoshopped. And I'm saying this because anybody that's listening to this that has ever altered or adulterated or photoshopped or doctored any document, it's time for you to repent, because you don't know how many people have been hurt by what you have done. Even with voices, there are apps now that can take somebody's voice and tweak it and make it seem like you said something that you did not say. We all see these ones where they take your picture and put it on somebody else's body and show it out there. So this is very dangerous. When we come back to our professors, I want them to address this, not the mainstream media, but the reporters, the social media reporters, the unlicensed journalists, the people, the haters, people that just come up with stuff, or they take stuff and dock it. Like somebody can take a picture of me with his red cap. I don't know if that's what Bangla people wear, and change it to be a black cap. And they'll put it on this show, and they will vouch that Niasa was wearing a black cap instead of a red cap. I can pick on me, he's my brother, and I love him. So, but anyway, we're at the top of the hour. Before I make the announcement, I didn't quite hear what Dr. Dematov was saying about wine and me. I didn't quite get that. So I don't know if Dr. Dematov was saying I should drink some wine. Dr. Dematov, I make homemade wine, not alcoholic free. I am not a distributor or advisor of, as far as I'm concerned, alcohol has no use in the human body except as a disinfectant for topical use. So that will be another show. But anyway, I just want to
that's another show. No, so much so, because it goes back to the ethics. You're talking about the ethics, because when we used to go and report in some offices in Nigeria, the point was when we came, they had yellow envelopes for us. On the surface, it didn't make sense. But if you consider the fact that the journalists had about a family of 10 children, wives, depending on that, sometimes it became a critical question: should they take those kinds of gifts or not? But as you said,
yeah, we'll come back to you. Let me announce the topics, because we're at the top of the hour. So I was just posing the question to the three of you so that after the announcement, you guys can take turns and address it. So that was just a side comment. So starting next week, we still have one more Sunday in the month of May, and the last Sunday of the month, we've done this for 4 years. We handled a health topic. Dr. Stella, I hope you're on, turn on your video, because I'll be giving you a minute here to speak. We are going to be handling.
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay, we are going to be talking about coronavirus in children. That's what we're going to be talking about starting tomorrow. Most people have not been talking about that, but that's what we're going to be talking about. And before I hand over to Dr. Stella in a minute here, I think the last time we had Dr. Stella on the call, I did not give her an opportunity to share her clinic information. She was our guest. Actually, she's part of the team now. But so when I'm done with this announcement, I'll give Dr. Stella a couple of minutes to talk about her clinic. She is a frontline worker, and she's been treating COVID patients. And she's also a pediatrician and a family practice. But last Sunday on the show, some of you will recall that I was talking about a new CDC alert on children. And I was trying to remember, I was saying multi-system inflammatory. So it's multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. That was a CDC alert that I just saw it in passing on the news. So I couldn't quite remember. I could have just Googled it during that show, but that was what I was referring to. So, Dr. Stella, we're going to be talking about that next week. And as a pediatrician who has practiced on the continent also, you're going to be our guest. But I want you to take a minute and just, introduce yourself and talk about your clinic, because we want people to be able to contact you, and we have other physicians. But just take a couple of minutes, and then we're gonna go back to Asong. Dr. Stella.
Okay, thank you very much, Pastor Pam. I'm in Houston. Our clinic is on Rehoboth. It's called Rehoboth Medical Center, 6278 Highway 6 South, right on the corner of Highway 6 and Bel Air. And we're about to. I'm also about to join an online telemedicine company, which I'm just kind of I'm getting credentialed this week, but it should be on live sometime by the end of the week, because I'm licensed in Louisiana, I'm licensed in Kentucky and in Texas. So I basically can see patients in Louisiana, Kentucky, and Texas. I've had the privilege of treating patients with COVID, and this is I've had the privilege of actually treating patients with seeing how easy it is to treat patients that come in with COVID early. The whole issue is early. When a lot of people, there's been a lot of stories bashing hydroxychloroquine, but I will tell you, in my experience and the experience of many, many other physicians, it works. It's just that all that stuff is being censored out of the internet. When you get hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and Zithromax, it works. And I'm going to do a little show on the case for hydroxychloroquine, because I really do think that a lot of the death is senseless. And I do believe that we should. You would think that we'll be able to trust our leaders in the CDC, WHO, and all that stuff, thinking that they will do what is best for us. But I really do think that those leaders, just like our leaders back home, most of the time they do what is best for their pockets. And nobody makes money off a cheap generic drug. I just think that's what the basic issue is with hydroxychloroquine. But I'm just saying that for my experience, it works. We've taken care of patients. We've taken care of. Right now, I'm actually putting all my patients that are high risk, like healthcare workers, people that have diabetes and other problems. I'm actually putting them on prophylaxis hydroxychloroquine, and people are going crazy about it. But the truth is, the mechanism of action of hydroxychloroquine makes it better to be taken as a prophylactic or in early disease. There have been reports of, they had a report they did from the VA that, people took hydroxychloroquine and it killed some people. In fact, the VA secretary spoke the other day very strongly about it, that was not even a real study. They had given it to people that were near death. And of course, a lot of them died. The other group, the control group was actually given some other medications. So that is not the time to use it. And part of the narrative and part of the craziness is the fact that they restricted this medication to use in the hospital when people have come to a level where they're already too sick for it to work. That's number one. Number two is the fact that this disease has been around for like 2.5 months. So they really don't have any randomized double-blinded study on anything. Those that are being intubated and getting like serious problem and ending up dying because of the intubation, they've not done any study on it. They've not done any study on, in fact, they are still coming up with new symptoms caused by this disease. So this is a novel virus. Everything right now is kind of try and error. So if any person is talking about, we want the science, we want the double-blinded study, it's not even possible. Those things take time. It takes 6 months, 1 year to do a double-blinded study. So, but there have been in vitro studies that have been done with this medication. I keep saying this because it's so crazy, and I keep talking about it because if you ever get infected, please demand to be put on hydroxychloroquine. I have doctors, I've treated doctors from other states that they are in a state where they get exposed, they are sick, but their state will not let them prescribe it because it's crazy. I have to call in the medication for them or ship medication to them, and I've treated a lot of them, and a lot of them have done well. So far, I've not lost a patient yet. So I'm just saying that my people, listen. Some of this thing doesn't make sense. Wherever you are, listen. Talk to your doctor. You have a right. In America, you have a right to try. You have a right to try a medication. Sometimes you have a right to even try an experimental medication. So part of the thing that bothers me is the fact that this medication that is doing so well is being bashed. And not only that, they are censoring everything that says the medication is doing well. So we're doing it in our clinic. People are coming to our clinic right now to get prophylaxis, to get treatment. Thank God we're in Texas. The TDC has actually taken off part of the restriction and said it is between the doctor and the patient. So that way you guys, you know, if you guys, you can call me. My clinic number is 281-530-1230. 281-530-1230. I'm licensed in Texas, in Kentucky, and in Louisiana. In these 3 states, I can practice telemedicine. And if we can, we can also get people in other states to take care of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Stella. We will have plenty of time to discuss this next week, starting tomorrow, Memorial Day, on our forum and during the next show. So to our professors of journalism, both the current professors and the former professors, I hope you remember my question. Forget about the alcohol business, just the question I asked. Over Dr. Domatov, and then Dr. Bonga, and then Dr. Asonglefac Nkemleke. By the way, Jerry, you were not on this show before.
Mama.
I told them that me as is a Bangwa man, but I made him a Bali man. Even
He's welcome.
Yeah, we call him Ni also. So as long as you come in contact with a Bali woman, you have to become a Bali man. It doesn't matter whether you're friends or whatever.
No, you said the right thing.
Yeah, I wanted before my friend and colleague Jerry comes on just to piggyback on what Dr. Stella was saying. I think what Dr. Stella said there underscores the challenge for journalists to report stories related to the pandemic. Already here is a physician who is practicing, who is telling us anecdotes, real stories of what she is experiencing. But the stories coming out of some of the powerful houses are different.
Yes.
So, and the journalists who are reporting, if they are not able to talk to people like Dr. Stella and other doctors who are experimenting in their clinics with different things that work or don't work, those are the stories we want to see in the papers. But on the other hand, you have the big pharma, the politicians, and all the others who have the space. These are the people who have the most exposure to the media. They speak because they are covered every day. So their stories are upfront. Dr. Domatov talked of the agenda-setting role of the media. It is the stories that you see that people will read because those are the ones that have been written. And those are the stories that will come from the where you have the concentration of reporters. You have concentration of reporters up the hill in Washington, Congress. You have concentration of reporters in the White House, State Department, and all those other places. But Dr. Stella may not have a reporter even know that she is practicing. So you see the imbalance there. Anyway, I wanted just to underscore that because what the story she tells us is exactly the challenge for that journalists face.
It is indeed a big challenge because if we cannot go to the backwoods to get the news, it becomes a problem because the news is not necessarily in the capital. The news is not necessarily the politician. No, the lady in the backwoods, that lady who was not able to get up in the morning because of the ailment she's suffering from, is the news. It should be the source of our news. So it is unfortunate that the journalist today no longer has that ability to go back to the backwoods to be able to fish the news out of the people in the backwoods, because we're all concentrated on the big cities, on the politicians and all the big people and so on. And then we forget the common man in the backwoods who is actually the source of news. But then what do? There is competition, there is the shortage of time because we have only 24 hours in a day, and the news cycle these days is just an hour. It's no longer the whole day. The news cycle used to run the whole day, but the news cycle today is like an hour. A story breaks at 2 o'clock. By 3 o'clock, there is a different story. So there's so much competition that the journalist is facing to be able to meet the challenge. Anybody else, please, can go ahead.
Yes, and this takes us, thank you so much. It takes us into the arena of global politics, and we really appreciate that. Where again you have the center and the periphery, and these kinds of things are bound to happen. Where some states, luckily we're not mentioning Cameroon even in a positive light. Normally when it appears, it's in a very negative and very, very degrading kind of form. But I wish to take this opportunity again to thank Mapam. Mapam, please, we are requesting that you set up one of these more forums for us. I think this has been a real start. We thank you very much. Dr. Stella, you sound very persuasive. You are the kinds of stories we're talking about. Has somebody done a profile on Dr. Stella? Maybe now. So right in our midst here, we have a John. But we may not be, we would not even have known. And then we want to insist that little forums like this are very critical and important. If we don't tell our stories, nobody's going to tell our story the way it should be told. And so, Brother Song, we thank you. Mapam, special praises. Dr. Stella, we're happy to know you. A doctor is always a special person in our midst. Medicine man. No, we're not a medicine man. So it's always a very important thing to have that kind of touch. And Mapam, please keep in touch. You are doing so much, not just with this group, but with the community. We really appreciate you. I keep asking, where do you have all this energy from? But thank you, and thank you.
All glory to God. Thank you, Dr. Damata. Niason, over to you.
Solange, I think Solange was trying to say something, if I guess her mind.
She's muted.
Solange was not saying something.
She's muted.
Sylvia?
She's muted. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing that I've been noticing, so Dr. Stella, thank you so much. And all the other doctors that are online today, you've given us some terrific information with also the journalism aspect, like you said, of the ABCs. I've learned something new too today. I used to be a young journalist many moons ago, but of course, a lot has changed since then. But suffice to say, what I've been noticing is I've gotten quite a few videos of actual testimonies of people who have recovered from COVID. And fortunately, almost all of them are attributing it to the same what's that drug again you're saying?
Hydroxychloroquine.
Yes, hydroxychloroquine. Yes, hydroxychloroquine. Now, what I've noticed is when I see it on on YouTube today, by the evening, come midnight, when I want to share, it's taken off. It's being taken off because these are testimonies, these are real people who were infected or affected by the disease and they have recovered. They don't want to give credit to that medication like Dr. Stella said, because it's peanuts for the pharma companies. They're not making the billions and gazillions of dollars that they need to make. Now, this is a crying shame. I believe as journalists or people who know how to report and write these stories, we need to keep those with the consent of the actual patients or the actual survivors or the actual people that are talking, or if they've mandated or asked a family member or somebody else to speak on their behalf, to bring out these stories on programs such as what we're doing right now. If we had one, because I was trying to get one of those patients to see if she could come on the show, because she had given her Facebook page. I can't remember her name now. And she said, hit me up on Facebook. Then when I went to do that, everything was gone. YouTube was gone. Facebook, it wasn't there anymore. So the positive news, as we've been saying, is not really being given the limelight that it should be
reported
because of the drug that is actually working. But the people, the powers that might be behind all this stuff, the WHOs and everybody else that's losing money, will not let these people come out. And that's not right. We need to find the cure. We need to find a common ground for those poor people like me and my brothers and sisters out there who can't afford all these ventilators that cost $1 gazillion for you to go to the hospital. Why should I be hospitalized in that hospital and paying $1 gazillion when I can get that chloroquine tablet and pop it? I don't know how many times the doctor prescribed it for. But it will be cheaper and easier for me to recover from, rather than occupying a bed in that hospital and not even knowing whether I'm going to survive or not from the experimental drug. Dr. Stella, job well done. Thank you so very much for the work that you're doing, and may God continue to bless you for doing what you're doing.
Yes, and on that, I would like to go back to what Reverend Palm talked about social media, this role of social media. We have today the professional journalists, and then you have the rest of us who can use their powerful devices to send stories that go viral, depending on how well constructed they are. I just want to talk a little bit about what we now commonly call deep fake. And I think Reverend Palm started talking a little bit about that. The ability, the technological ability today to give somebody not only a false image, but also to distort or give them a voice that is not theirs.
Yes,
Have them
exactly.
say things that they did not say, and have it looking as realistic as the person themselves. So we are sliding into very dangerous territory. The technology is providing us enormous resources, and then, of course, those who can distort them are doing it for their own reasons. So what does a citizen do when they are bombarded with news from reliable sources and then from these other sources? So I think the challenge for everyone is always verify. We have the tendency, I say we citizens have the tendency of sending the next story we get, which sounds true, to the next person we know on those our WhatsApp groups and all the other groups. And what do? They send them. So the caution should be, and that's where the common sense, which is not common, comes from, is always take that one moment to check the story again before you send it out, especially when we are dealing with something as deadly as this pandemic or any other story for that matter. So verify. And what I tell students to do is, do not give me a story from a source that is not a credible news source. What is a credible news source? I say for now, go with the major news outlets, and then we can go from there. Because the most slick and the most almost brilliantly produced websites are those fake websites. So they are attractive. So I think the point I'm making there is, let us take that pause before we send a story out, before we push something that somebody has pushed with an agenda. Go to the reputable websites because their reputation is at stake. So they will not publish stories that will ruin them. Yeah. So let's do that.
Now, on the social media sites where I belong, the groups that I belong, I tell people all the time, take a deep breath as you would in anger management before you forward a story. Ask yourself, what impact am I causing to the other person? What pressure am I putting on the other person if I forward this story? Have I verified it? Have I checked it out? Am I sure that it is really true? So those are things I try to tell people. I tell them what they do in their normal lives to do in social media before they share stories, before they go out there and circulate things which may end up burning houses rather than quenching the fires.
We have 9 minutes.
Very good.
9 minutes.
Professor Jerry Domatov, I thought he had something to say.
Yes, again, just to reiterate the necessity of training, which you've talked about, ethics, conscience, even to some extent, laws and regulations, because the ethical dimension of all of this is really critical. Like you pointed out and Dr. Ben reiterated, verification is crucial and in fact of paramount importance, not just to the readers, but to humanity in general. I mean, look at this whole process, this whole thing going on now. If you hear some of the things that, and it's blown up in the public, where the big powers even accuse each other, or if you look at again the other dimension, where subtle accusations, and then all the negatives of the media come out, media bias, media propaganda, media lies, media distortion, demeaning of personalities. I mean, all kinds of very, 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 I mean, the worst of the media. You can find the worst of the media. And that's the kind of world we are dealing with. And after we come out of this quarantine, we don't know what kinds of products we are going to be, because we have tested another variable of life and it's taking us in some other direction. But my plea again to Reverend Pam is that, Reverend Pam, does a lot of work. Do the best you can. Please, again, keep us in touch as far as this is concerned. The wine issue, maybe that was too big, but it's always a factor. So those, and then thank you for bringing us again into contact with the doctors. Who's the last lady who spoke? Who was the last lady who spoke? There's Dr. Stella.
If I may,
yes,
if I may,
ahead,
Jerry,
Jerry,
if I may, some of the things that you raised earlier, I think it's imperative for us to at least address them. We are Africa Online, so the state of the media in Africa is something that matters to us.
A lot.
So we were lucky to be products of an excellent journalism school. But when I look at the state of journalism today and the training of journalists on the continent, I'm in tears virtually, because the governments are still in the business of education, which is good. But then, when these journalists are trained, we are still at a point in our development on the continent where it is not clear what the role of the journalist should be. Should the journalist be the press singer of the government is in place, or should the journalist be doing what journalists should do, which is speak truth to power, which is inform citizens about what matters? And if the role of the journalist is not clarified, and the powers that be do not provide access or opportunities for journalists to do their work, I think it will be a long time before we begin to get the stories that matter from the continent. Because the stories that matter from the continent still remain the stories told from the perspective of the governments. And we know there's more to our countries than the perspectives of the governments.
Exactly.
That's
very good.
I want, my co-host.
Online. Can we give them a chance?
Go ahead, please.
I think we have a new participant online.
Yeah, it's somebody with an iPhone. I don't know the name.
Let the person just go ahead and say what's on their mind.
We have 4 minutes. They can unmute.
Can the caller who's online right now, if you'd like to ask a question or like to make a contribution, please unmute yourself and state your business. Thank you. What's the last 4 numbers of their phone number, Reverend?
I don't know. It just says iPhone. That's okay. I don't want to unmute them because I don't know if they're in a noisy area. But just wanted to acknowledge them. Niason, we have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll go around the table.
Okay, they are on.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, caller, please come in. Caller, say something.
My name is Dennis. I'm calling I'm in Canada. I'm part of Africa Online. But I've been very inactive. But I think I follow up actually, and I kind of was interested in the topic today, and I'm sorry that I might just have been, I kind of turned down a number of times the request because I know people were presenting and a request to indicate, but I thought it was just the application that was making those demands, but I didn't mean to be interruptive in a way. Yeah, so I may therefore use the opportunity to just appreciate a lot of the work you all have been doing, and appreciate our participants, our presenters. I believe some of us have been so lukewarm, but not that we don't have the interest of the group. We all are hoping and aspiring that as Africans we can certainly come up with different ways or different contributions in making our continent better than what it is today. So I just wish to acknowledge again all the input from Niason, Auntie Pam, And I don't want to repeat all the names of the presenters, but I'm happy to have been part today. Thank you so much for.
Thank you so much. And please, every week we start at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you can always dial in and participate. We don't prevent anybody from saying what is on their mind. That said, I think Professor Jerry Domato, your last word, please.
We have 2 minutes.
Yes, once again, I accept my heartfelt and profuse thanks. And you remember that song, the more we are together, the more we are together, the happier we shall be.
Thank you, Prof. Unfortunately, we will not be able to sing that song today, but next week I'm sure we'll start with it. That said, Professor Bonga, your last word.
Again, wonderful show, and I'm grateful that our brother Jerry was on today, educating us on what we need to know about this amazing profession of journalism, which is more in demand today than at any time in human history. So thank everybody for being on the show today, and we wish that we keep growing and growing and growing and have an impact on the continent especially.
Dr. Stella, thank you.
Yeah, I'm grateful and honored to be part of this group and part of this program. And I just pray that, we're going to have a time when truth will be allowed to flow and people will be able to hear what they need to hear, and pray that everybody will be well. But just remember that you got to filter what is being said and what is being said, and try to make sure that you get the truth for you and your family so you can survive.
Thank you very much, Solange.
It's muted.
Okay. All right. Co-host, Stella.
Yeah, I wanted to thank
Sylvia, please.
I just wanted to thank everybody that came on this show. As always, it's such a pleasure listening to the experts of different topics. And for sure, every time I leave this show, I leave with something new, something I learned that I did not know before. May God continue to bless us all. May God continue to bless our program as well and give us the strength to continue doing what we do.
Reverend Pan.
Yes, thank you so much, Nia Song. I just want to say, before you forward that WhatsApp information, before you spread any news, before you generate any news, ask yourself if it's going to build somebody up or if it's going to tear somebody down. There are things that you have forwarded that have destroyed people's lives. Think about it, because just know that God reads every text messages and every news. Nia Song.
Thank you very much. I'm so honored. We are also honored on Africa Online Media Corporation. Thank you all, Professor Jerry Domato, Professor Ben Bongang, Dr. Stella, Solange, Sylvia, everybody else. Please, if I don't call your name, don't beat me up. I'm very grateful for all of us. Please let us have a beautiful week. And for those of you in the United States, happy Memorial Day tomorrow, Monday. Thank you all, and bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.